What's up, guys? Welcome back to the REI Marketing Weekly Newsletter. Josh Culler here, and today I'm excited to have a good friend of mine out of Southern California, Donald Ross. Is it Don or Donald? Like, which one do you prefer? I know Donald's your real name, but like,
I go with either, man. I'm easy.
it doesn't matter. Okay, cool. All right, so I'm just gonna call you Don because I feel like that's just, it's more like, we're pals when I call you Don, just like you call me Josh instead of Joshua.
Sure.
I don't know,
yeah,
man.
I got you.
Yeah, whatever. So anyway, so I got Don here on the interview, and I'm excited to have him on. Many of you guys have heard of Beast Mode, which is a Podio. I'll have you explain that in a second, but it's a Podio kind of system that you guys have that's already built out for you to be able to use for a CRM, for CRM purposes. And so I'm going to have Don talk about the importance, first of all, of a CRM and how you can leverage a CRM to improve your marketing efforts in order to not just bring in more leads, but to curate those leads and get more deals closed, which that's super important. You guys hear follow up all the time. And I know, Don, you're wearing that Inner Circle Elite hat right now. And when we were in there a couple of weeks ago, Don Costa mentioned something effective. Sometimes it's not even like just the 7 follow-up rule that people always talk about. It's hitting them at the right place in the right time when you get that deal under your belt. And so maybe we could talk about, some things of that nature as well. But before we get into it, do me a favor, Don, real quick. And I want you to explain what Beast Mode actually is and what people can expect from that. And, I want to give you that opportunity. And at the end, we'll, make sure we link it up and everything. So who you are, what you do, and then talk about some of the Beast Mode kind of stuff that you got going on.
Sure, absolutely. So I am retired military. I was in the Marine Corps for 7 years. Part of where I've learned some of this tenacity to just push through and figure stuff out obviously came from that. One of the things I did while I was in the Marine Corps is actually created a database using Access to track all the contracts for Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. And that was a couple $100 million worth of stuff. I created it in 3 months, and that was kind of the start of me kind of jumping into the CRM and databases and automation and stuff like that. So after I got out 2014, started looking into this real estate thing. Of all people, it was actually Joe McCall in a lease option course, and that was my first deal that I did, was a remote lease option from California in Wisconsin from where I originally lived. And I started building out Podio because Joe McCall told me Podio was the thing to have. So I started building out Podio and figuring it out like a lot of people. And from there, I kind of liked it and just figured out, hey, this is really kind of my thing that I dig. And I YouTube University, started figuring out how to code and connect and automate, and started having people asking me, how I could do it for them. And I started building some systems for people. And I fought it for a long time of providing a system with support and everything else out there. I didn't know if I wanted to do that or not and have that as something that we did. But after a good friend of mine out of New Jersey talked me into it, started providing it for some guys in a mastermind, and the rest is history. 7 or 8 of them beat up on me, broke it, and we redesigned it a couple times. And from there, we're at almost 900 people using the platform at this point.
That's awesome. That's freaking sweet, man. So I know that, kind of Beast Mode is, this platform that you have inside of Podio, and the REI Automation Squad is kind of the mother brand for that. So talk about kind of what REI Automation Squad is, and then go a little bit deeper into what Beast Mode actually does, what it is and what it does for people.
Sure. So Automation Squad is the brand name, and obviously the flagship is Beast Mode CRM. And so we built out an app suite and workspace inside of that. It was for our business out of Wisconsin, wholesaling houses out of Wisconsin, doing some hotels and a couple flips that I don't know that I ever want to do any more flips anytime soon. But Amy will agree with that on that.
Yeah.
I built it out for our needs. And so what we needed was we're sending direct mail, we're sending out marketing, and we need something to capture those inbound calls and those responses from the marketing. And to be able to see, hey, if I spend $2,000 today, does it take me a month? Does it take me 6 months to get the money back in? So part of our system tracks that. As people are calling back in, we're tagging the campaign they called off of, basically the list or whatever that we use for marketing. And then we're saying when that item was created, when they called, how long did it take before we closed that thing out to a contract? And so we're tracking that by campaign. That's what we found was a very useful tool in, money in, money out. Is it a 1 month cycle? Is it a 3 month cycle? And if I have a campaign that does it in a month, can I put more money at that and keep getting more money quicker?
Sure.
So, that was part of it. One of the things you brought up and alluded to is the follow-up side of things. And so, one of the things that we've gotten a lot of value from is John Martinez and the sales training and some of the wording that he uses. Mm-hmm. And so with our follow-up, we built out text and ringless voicemail drip campaigns. And we found that if we kept just kind of touching base every 30 to 45 days on a long-term, short-term, pretty aggressive, 3 to 7 days, we kept reaching out, seeing how they were doing. Has anything changed? And from there, that we would talk back and forth or text back and forth. And they thought we were just on it and just kept getting in front of them. And we're able to close more deals because we're constantly reaching out, building the rapport. Now we're doing phone calls too, where we're reaching out, but nonetheless, we keep coming back. And when the time is right and they make the decision to sell, they're thinking of us because, hey, they keep calling, they keep sending messages. They're always here. They're not going anywhere. They're not a fly by night that said something and then never heard from us again. Mm-hmm. And we're answering the phone. That's part of the important part as well.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, the basics and doing the basics consistently is what matters. And being able to track those basics and the consistency of marketing, if you can do those things over and repeatedly, it's pretty much impossible not to at some point be successful.
So, I think a lot of times people, I'm glad you brought that up. So I think a lot of times people, they look at marketing and there's a million things you can do in marketing in order to bring and generate leads in for, it doesn't matter if you're a wholesaler looking to, acquire properties, same thing for fix and flippers. It doesn't matter if you're in real estate, if you have a cake shop down the road, if you have a gym or whatever, like marketing has these core principles that you have to have in place in order to bring those leads in and generate those. And in a world where you can do a million things in marketing, a lot of people try to jump on those things, but then they forget about the fundamentals, And I think that people really need to make sure that they got those fundamentals that you just mentioned down packed before jumping into those extracurricular things, because if you jump into these things and you miss the fundamentals, those are not going to succeed for you. And then at the end of the day, you hear people all the time, I'm sure you hear it more than I do. People say, this doesn't work, or that kind of marketing doesn't work. RVMs don't work. Text messaging doesn't work. Facebook ads doesn't work. And more times than not, you find that the systems that they have on the back end for that, or even the ad that they built out on Facebook, it's not going to work. It's not built for it to be a successful campaign. So having those fundamentals down is so extremely important. And I think that's something that I'm glad you really brought that up, because there's not really been anybody I've had on the show that's kind of alluded to it in that way. So when it comes down to it, I know you mentioned John Martinez, and the proper things to say when it comes to the text messaging and then the RVMs and your direct mail and all that kind of stuff. And in your thoughts, where is it kind of where is the line drawn when it comes to kind of bugging and annoying your motivated sellers? And even if they're not motivated, they're just because there's a difference between a seller and a motivated seller and a distressed seller. So where do you draw that line? Like when somebody says F off, like what do you do at that point? Or if they say, hey, I actually am ready to sell, but then they drag it out, like kind of give me some insight on what that looks like for you and your system.
So for us, our system has what we call next action. It's basically a status field or button. And when somebody calls in and tells us they are or are not interested, if they simply ask very nicely to say, hey, I do not want you to send mail, do not contact me, we mark them as removed from list. Now, I'm going to be honest, we still send mail. It still goes out. We're still following up every 60 to 90 days. And at some point, if they get aggressive and start threatening, cops, FBI, and tinfoil hats, all right, we're going to mark it dead, and we have a dead lead button, and we're not going to continue to follow up at that point. But overall, what we found when we tracked the people that we marked removed from list, especially if they're on, let's say, a list of pre-foreclosure, tax default, things like that, they may tell us to go away, but we know they have to make a decision. So we're going to follow up with them, and it's just not going to be as aggressive as normal. It'll be every 60, 90 days, and we'll keep getting in front of them. And at some point, they're going to have to make that decision. In Wisconsin, the 2-year mark is kind of where they start having to make that decision before the house gets sold for the taxes. So, knowing those kind of deadlines is definitely helpful. Whereas if it's maybe just an absentee owner and they tell you, hey, I'm not going to sell, I own 40 properties. All right, maybe you remove them. It sounds like they're successful and they're happy being a landlord. So you just kind of take that in with a grain of salt. But for the most part, we keep mailing. And the reason we do is we found that when we tracked it, there was 2 years ago when we were tracking it, where initially they told us pound sand, go away, we're not selling. We kept mailing. We bought 5 of them. So when you actually look at, hey, when did these people tell us we're going to go, we're not going to go, we're not interested, what happened? And we had that tracking. And so part of our philosophy, and we tell everybody when they're using our system, if somebody initially tells you to go away, we don't delete anything. We leave it in the system, because if they call back, text back 6 months, 2 years later, I want to be able to see the conversation we had,
that thread
and the history. And so I see that in a lot of I think the newer investors that are getting started, they have that mentality of, well, it's junk, it's clogging up my system, let's just get rid of it.
Right.
No, there's a lot of gold there if you just kind of follow up with it long term. I've had recently where we've had people tell us the text messages, that's all they had turned on in the follow-up. And they just closed a deal out in California and made some significant money out in California off of our drip follow-up text. And the seller thought that they just didn't go away, and they were the ones that kept following up with them. It works. The follow-up works. You just got to be consistent with it.
Yeah, I agree with that. And so, like, we were talking earlier about, being at the right place at the right time with your follow-up. I mean, I know that's like extremely important, bar none. So when it comes down to it, though, I know that the right messaging is important too. I don't know if it's like as important as the right place, right time, because you could have this super well-crafted messaging to them. And if they're legitimately not ready to sell right now, then they're not going to pull the trigger. But then if you hit them with like, hey, are you still like looking to sell, when they're ready 7 months down the road, then you're going to get the trigger pulled on you. So like when you're doing your text messaging, when you're doing your postcards, and actually right after I jump off this interview with you, I'm going to have Todd Swaggerty on to talk about, nuances of postcards and mailings and stuff like that. But when it comes down to you, what type of messaging are you using for your text blasts and your the RVMs and the postcards and all that? Like, what are you thinking about in order to get into their mind to get them to call you back and get a response?
So I agree. It's definitely right time, right place, more important than anything. And for that reason alone, that's why, we choose to do the ringless and the voicemail stuff dropping. And on top of that, we have a date field that we say next contact, which basically tells us, hey, we're going to call them on this date. And it shows up inside of our system that we need to call them. So we're calling them every 30 to 60 days. They're getting a text, ringless, and voicemail. And every 6 weeks, they're getting a direct mail piece. So between those touch points, we're hoping that, not enough time passes, that if they do make a decision and they for whatever reason can't find our contact information, we're able to jump in at that point and, oh yeah, I remember that's those people that keep reaching out to me. Because there are people that have had postcards on their dang refrigerator for a year and a half, and then they just randomly call in, and you're like, are you kidding me? So, it's definitely right place, right time first, and then messaging second. Now, I'll be very honest, I am not a wordsmith. I am not good at that stuff. And John is very well at it, and some others are. And so he's allowed us to use some of his scripting in our platform. And that's what I roll with. I don't try to fix something that ain't broke. It seems to work really well.
Yeah, I got you. Absolutely. And I agree. And we've had John on the newsletter here too, to talk about that. I'm going to be visiting him in another couple of weeks to shoot videos. So I'm going to get him back on the interview to talk about that even more in depth. And so I just wanted to see what you were doing. And so if you're using John's, like you said, if it ain't broken, then, don't fix it. So we'll talk about that more. So I want to kind of transition as we go into like kind of the last few minutes here that I have you. I want to transition into the importance of a CRM. I've not had anybody on the show here that's talked about having a good CRM and actually utilizing it the right way. I like to think of it this way, is that, you got this tool that you could, kill it if you actually use it correctly and do the right things with it. But then if it just sits there dormant, it's just like money. Like if you let your money sit in a savings account, it's not going to grow. It's not going to build anything for you. But if you have it in an IRA and then you invest that money, you get those returns. When you turn 59 and a half, you pull those, tax-free returns out, then it's done something for you. but it can, that money could sit there and do absolutely nothing if you don't do anything with it, if you don't do the right things with it, especially. So same thing for the CRM. This tool that, everybody knows what it is. Everybody knows about it. But what are some things that you see people maybe not doing correctly that they should be doing in order to, they have already obviously got the leads in there in the CRM, but to curate those leads and actually get deals closed when they have that data in their CRM? What are some things that you're noticing that people should be doing or maybe should not be doing?
Sure. Yeah, I think there was a time frame just 2-3 years ago where everyone was trying to automate everything, and it became the Swiss Army knife that had all the bells and whistles, and it was complex as could be. And unfortunately, what that also does is oftentimes the basics get left behind, and you wind up not filling in data points that are the more important data points, such as the date of when you're going to follow up next time with them, turning on the drip campaign to drip out to them. All the other fancy little tools that connect to it really don't, at the end of the day, matter. You can get them, they're nice to have, but if you're not doing the basics consistently, it does not matter. So we, change things up a little bit. A lot of times people were building out CRMs and apps, especially in Podio, where it had 5-6 different apps that you bounced around in between. And you never really knew where you were at unless you jumped between those apps as an owner. So we were like, hey, what if we build it out in one app and you're able as an owner to search a seller's name, property address, and you come in and you see the status, you see the notes, you see it all the way from when it was started all the way to the end when it was a contract that closed, and it's in one spot. So, whether you use ours or you use something else, simplicity is one of the big things. At the end of the day, you want to have a spot to put your notes, your data, your status of where you're at. And then, if you can connect some nice stuff to have some automated follow-up, that would be my kind of basic, let's have that. And as long as you have that, then some stuff will happen, and you're always getting across the line at that point. So, there's plenty of platforms out there that will get you there. What I'll tell you is the fancy shiny objects will always be there, and the next best thing will always be coming out. And at some point you got to say, hey, as long as I do these 5 things really well, that's all that matters. And that's what we've tried to focus on at the end of the day, because we constantly, with Podio, you get questions. Can you connect this? Can you connect that? Yes, you can connect just about anything you want, but should you really? And we're pretty good with having those conversations with people of, is it really that important to your business, or is it just a nice to have rabbit hole that you're going to go chase for the next 3 months?
That's interesting. I completely agree, because I tell people all the time, because I do content production, and that naturally means, posting this content on social media. People are always asking me, like, should I be on LinkedIn? Should I be on TikTok? Should I be on Instagram or Facebook pages, Facebook profile, and all this stuff? And I just tell them, like, you got to know your audience and then go to where they're at. Those are the 2 most important things. And, if there's no audience on, LinkedIn for you, then don't go to LinkedIn. And there's a lot of shiny objects that could happen there, because there's a million platforms that you could put content on, but you got to focus on the ones that are going to work. And you evaluate that by sticking to the fundamentals, which is, who is your audience and where are they at? Those are the fundamentals, right? And it's the same thing for when you're using the CRM. You got to figure out who your audience is and then where they're going to be at. And that's the important thing, is like catching them at the right time. You got to get them where they're at. So if you're going to catch them at the right time, you got to send them a text message. And that could be, where are they at emotionally? Where are they at in the process of getting foreclosed on? That also goes along with where are they at. So really good thoughts there. I appreciate that, Don. So I'm going to wrap this up here. I appreciate you sharing everything that you have, some really good value. And I'm going to give you the opportunity again to talk about REI Automation Squad, and then also Beast Mode one more time to link that up for people. But as we wrap this up, are there some things, anything that in the marketing world for real estate investors, for active real estate investors, that you want people to know, like, you should be doing this or you should not be doing this? Maybe it's something that you see on the horizon coming up that, or like, for instance, we were talking about text messaging, like kind of going on the decline right now. I mean, anything like that you're seeing that you want people to know about?
Personally, I think the more important part is if you can pick one marketing channel and master it and get really good at it, then add or layer to it. People have, it seems like what I notice is they get something to work, and then they're like, okay, that was fun. Now let me jump to the next one and try this. And they stop doing the other one that was working.
Yeah.
And then, 3-4 months later, they're like, oh, what happened to all the revenue? It's all gone. And I've got this new one that I tried that I'm just figuring out. It's not really producing. Now they've got to go back and start the other one, and the snowball's got to start all over again. So the biggest thing I'd say learning curve wise is consistently keep doing the one that's working. And if you want to add on top, great, add on top and test, but never shut off what's working.
I like that.
And I see that a lot.
Yeah, I do too. And yeah, I second that, guys. Like if something's working, I tell people that, like, if something's working, don't stop it. Or if you even see it, like, because I know a lot of people that, entrepreneurs were impatient, right? So they like something will start to work and then they're like, it's not taking off as much as I'd like. And then they shut it off and then you never see the full potential of that. And so if you see something start to work, then just keep pouring fuel on the fire. And then eventually it's going to, you're going to know kind of like when you're in the middle of it, if this is actually going to work or if it's not going to work. And you truly need to evaluate it by the numbers that we were talking about earlier. Evaluate your numbers, and then you can make the decision of like, putting that fire out or pouring more fuel on it. And then at that point, then don't shut that off if it is working.
Yeah. Todd and I actually have a good friend, so he'll relate to this, where he'll send 80, 100,000 pieces of direct mail once a year and then tell everybody that it doesn't work. And if we tell them, hey man, you really should break that up into like 10, 15,000 pieces and just do it 6 months straight and let us know how it works. But every year for like the last 3 years, the guy's dropped 80,000 pieces once a year. And then he tells us how much direct mail doesn't work. It's not that it doesn't work. You just have to be willing to dive in and say, hey, I'm going to do it for this period. And when somebody asks me, how long should I do something for to make sure it's working before I just say, hey, it doesn't work and kill it? I go in with a 6 month in mind. So for us, the mail is going to go up for 6 months on a list, and we are going to keep going until that point and then determine, hey, is this working, not working? Now, there's a very rare occasion where 3 months in, we're like, holy crap, that bombed like no other. I'm going to kill it. I'm going to be honest with you.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
If it looks like it's kind of headed the right way, it's running for at least 6 months. And then we're going to look at the numbers and see if we can do anything to tweak on it a little bit. But if it's working, we're running with what's working and then testing, A to B testing on some, letter, postcard, whatever. But overall, it's just get that message out and consistently get that message out. So when they're ready, they think of us.
I agree with that 6 month timeline. That's what I tell people too, because that 6 months is more than enough time to be able to tell if something's going to work or if it's not, but you got to give it at least that amount of time, especially like you said, if it is kind of seeing results and seeing ROI, because if you're going to get those deals in no matter what market you are in, more than likely it's competitive, then you got to be able to do these things repetitively and be patient with it and give it some time to get some steam, or else you're just not going to get deals. And so that's important to understand. But man, I appreciate you jumping on. I've got to wrap this up for you. I told you I wasn't going to keep you too long, but thank you so much for being on and sharing everything that you have. I'm definitely going to have you back again soon, man. So before I let you go, do me a favor. If somebody wanted to get in contact with you, or if they want to learn more about, Beast Mode or anything else that you got going on, let us know what that is. Obviously, guys, again, I'm going to have that linked in the description below, but Don, go ahead and give us some info about that.
Okay. Yeah. So over on Facebook, if you search Donald Ross, look for the picture of the lion. That's me. Hit the friend button. We'll chat. Reach out on the website. It's either reiautomationsquad.com for Beast Mode or easybuttonrei.com for the other stuff that we've got. So either one of those, we can be contacted, and I'm friendly. I don't bite too hard. So reach out.
Sounds good, man. Again, I appreciate you being on, guys. Those are going to be all linked in the description below, so make sure you check that out. Don, appreciate you being on, man, and I look forward to having you back again soon.
All right, take care.
All right, guys, that's going to do it for the newsletter interview for this week. Make sure you're checking out the rest of the content. A lot of good stuff going on. Share this around with your friends. Reach out to me if you have any questions. Just reply to that email that you got, or josh@colormedia.com, and I will see you guys next week. Take it easy.